So Ben, for some reason, you got to go check out the Dark Souls 2 DLC. I don't know how that ended up happening, but
I feel like I robbed you.
No. I don't even go to E3. I sit on my pile of trailers like a dragon. So I'm assuming there's the 3 DLCs coming out. I'm assuming you were checking out the first one.
That's correct.
Did you get a sense of like scale or anything?
I didn't. I played for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And
that's a good chunk of time.
So I cannot confirm this, but I felt like right as I was going to get to a boss, he like took the controller out of my hand and he said, "You cannot see this." So
was there like a fog gate in the?
There wasn't a fog gate, but
where were you?
So
I don't know exactly.
It wasn't I didn't see the name of the place, but it was ruins, and they looked a little bit Mayan or Aztec in nature. Very. Like gray stones and moss kind of covering everything. So were
you in the outdoors, or was there sky above you, or a ceiling?
There's sky above me.
Okay, because in the footage we saw for the all access and the trailer, not all of it, but a lot of it seemed to be kind of like underground or in caverns and stuff like that. So that's interesting.
Do you remember in Artorias of the Abyss, kind of that first area you would go to, that sort of outdoor town
where the mushrooms,
yes,
where the Elizabeth was, and the rakes and
right
stuff?
Right after that.
Oh, okay. So right before you get into Lost Ullasil.
Yes.
Okay.
It felt very, very, very similar to that.
Okay.
Where you're sort of in this outdoor area, but it's just like a series of buildings connected to each other.
Did you what kind of guys were you fighting? Did you see any of like the moving poison spitters or anything like that?
No, I did not see any moving poison spitters. There was a bug-like enemy with spores on the back of it, and I actually got to avoid them because my favorite thing in the DLC is at any given time, it felt like I could go 4 or 5 different directions, and it felt like I was missing out on a lot of stuff depending on where I was going. And because of the sort of layout of the place, I wasn't always sure how to get back to check out those various paths. It sort of felt like a labyrinth, I guess.
So, but it's outdoorsy, but there's ruins and stuff. So is there some like verticality and like kind of like going in all directions? So like where you had like Sen's Fortress or like the Depths, which was kind of like up and down, but you kind of felt kind of caged in the rooms. This is kind of more like sprawling.
Yes, sprawling is a good word for it.
Interesting.
There was a lot of verticality, however.
Okay.
What I liked is there were a couple of instances where you could tell that you needed to drop quite a huge ways into the next area, and if you angled the camera just right, you could see that there was an enemy lying in wait. So I got to do some pretty great downward stabs that were a lot.
You parry anyone?
I parried one guy once.
Like still mainly humanoid dudes, other than the bug.
So because I didn't actually fight the bugs, I only fought humanoids, and that actually super disappointed me. Again, it was only a 20-minute slice, so I can't really speak to how many different types of enemies there are going to be. They said all of the enemies are new. However, what I was fighting, they just looked like regular hollow soldiers with a little bit of moss on them. I mean, they were wielding clubs in addition to spears and swords, but it felt exactly like fights you've had 1,000 times before.
Did you run into any, did you get any new loot or anything? In particular, weapons or spells or anything?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. And I wasn't hunting around for items as much as I could have been because I just wanted to see as much as possible.
You were exploring.
Yeah.
I'm curious. In the trailer, or was it in our B-roll? I can't remember. There was a kind of a second that it looked like you were kind of interacting with the environment a little bit, which Dark Souls 2 did a tiny bit more, obviously, than Dark Souls 1. There was like some switches and moving things. I was curious. Was there any machinations in these ruins?
So I didn't activate any of these things myself, but I saw another person playing. They activated an elevator, and you had to do something to get it to work, and I couldn't figure out what that was in my time. And there are these 2 distant points, and you can build this sort of makeshift stone bridge across, and it's something that you can trigger. And I don't know how you do that either. So yes, that definitely seemed like it was going on.
Now, obviously, you just saw, like you said, this 20-minute slice, but I'm curious, like, obviously, we like the Souls games probably to an unreasonable level, but Artorias of the Abyss was an excellent little bit of DLC. I was curious, do you think this is going to stack up? Obviously, I've already bought my season pass, and I'm totally against season passes, but, do you think people are going to be generally happy?
There are two things that I'm very worried about. This being this sort of singular thing being split up into 3 episodes that all connect. And he said each part will take between 2 and 3 hours.
Really?
So I'm just worried that when you play that first episode, it's not going to feel like enough.
The guy you were talking to, did he mention if there's going to be any expansion with like Covenants or any online or anything like that?
He said something that was extremely interesting. He said that there are multiple routes that you can take to get to the end of an episode. And there's sort of one route that they're going to almost force you to play in co-op because it's going to be so difficult that you won't be able to do it without a buddy. So I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I don't know exactly what the rewards are going to be. I said, if you take this alternate route, will you find different bosses? And he kind of did a wink and a nod, and he said, I can't talk about that right now. So
that's interesting. Well, I like that there's multiple paths, so even if it's short, I mean, the game has some replayability.
Yeah.
Did any mention of how you're going to access the DLC? Because obviously, Artorias of the Abyss was well hidden. Obviously, you can go to the internet and figure it out, but it's really easy to swing an extra time and kill Dusk. So
I didn't get specific details, but he said, like Artorias of the Abyss, at a certain point in the game, you're going to have to do these things to get to that point. I don't know if it's going to be as complex as it was in Artorias of the Abyss or not.
Did they update the lighting engine?
No. Something that I thought was a little bit interesting, and again, 20-minute slice, so keep that in perspective. He said over and over and over again, this DLC is meant for very experienced players. We made it so much harder, so much harder, so much harder. It did not feel harder. You were always fighting groups of 2 or 3 at least, but nothing about it struck me as exceptionally challenging. I was playing a warrior, so I had a shield, a longsword, and then you could also switch that out for this Whitehander, a giant greatsword.
Okay. I guess just, I mean, is there any... We kind of talked to like the large scale of this. I'm just curious, other than like those little falling down bits, are there any particular little carved out moments that really stood out to you when you were adventuring? As a verb?
Just the thing that I want to reiterate is there were multiple rooms that I could have gone down, but because I went somewhere else, I there were no dead ends, it felt like. And that was something that kind of bothered me in Dark Souls 2 is some paths just felt like they ended very quickly. And here it felt like I had so many options and they just kept going. And they all sort of arrive at the same point, it seemed like.
And finally, I know you didn't fight the bugs, but when you're saying kind of like the spores and stuff, did you feel like there was an idea of like a poison or a toxic cloud associated with the bugs?
I can't say. I did see some poison. There was a giant poison statue that was sort of embedded between a group of enemies, and I thought that was interesting.
Okay, so maybe a little more of the same, but more of the same is not always a bad thing.
No, it honestly did feel like more of the same, but it was some of the most fun I had playing something at E3. It felt great, and I just... exploring it was awesome. Like, I can't wait to get my hands on it. I just hope it doesn't feel too short.
I guess if it is short, but you have that monthly, that it's going to be feeding you every month, you think that could actually kind of work out? I always said, like, I wouldn't mind treating Dark Souls almost like an MMO with big content patches quarterly while we're getting mini content padded. The idea now is we're getting these little tiny drops kind of monthly. I'm just curious, do you think this is a way you could actually really, I mean, sometimes DLC gets a bad rap, but is this a way, for a game like this that has a weird online component, but a lot of good soloing stuff as well, do you think this is a way to actually keep a game viable, keep it in your library for longer?
I mean, it really depends on what you find in the game. I mean, if you find some crazy new magic, that's going to make me want to go and then spend more time with Dark Souls 2 in every... Like, I want to interact with everything.
Because that will fold back into when you go through New Game Plus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on everything that's in there, and not just the length.
Were there bonfires?
Yes.
So, and bonfire aesthetic too. Who knows how that will kind of remix the level as well.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty interesting.
Very interesting.
A little bummed to hear 2 to 3 hours coming from it sounds like a PR guy or like a dev guy. But I'm still optimistic. I think I'm gonna dig it.
Yeah, I had fun.
Not allowed.